Welcome to our work from home troubleshooting webinar. Today, your hosts and presenters will be myself, and Stefano will be running through some slides and a quick demo. And just to go over the agenda quickly, we will talk about how remote and hybrid work are evolving, some common causes of remote worker network issues, some findings and lessons that we've learned that can hopefully help you, and then closing remarks on work from home troubleshooting. And with that, I will pass it over to Stefano.
Hey, thank you, Jess, and hi, everyone. Welcome. Really excited to get into the NetBees webinar. All right, before we start with the technical part and talk about how you can deal with the work from home issues, I want to just give a quick perspective into the new reality, which is the majority of employees today are working hybrid or remote. So if you compare this to 5 years ago, has been a major shift, of course. The numbers that you see here are representative of, as collected by the State of Remote Work Survey that we do every year since 2023. And that's actually just the change that happened in the last year. But nevertheless, hybrid workers and remote are definitely prevalent. So we hope that the content of this webinar will really help IT practitioners or whoever is involved with providing network connectivity services to users to really save time, resources, and pain from troubleshooting work from home issues. So let's get started. One of the first things that we would like to share with you is that what are the most common causes of remote worker issues? And also the data that you see here was collected during the State of Remote Work Survey. And it appeared that in the end, ISP and Wi-Fi network issues accounted for the majority of problems that work from home users or remote users of any kind are dealing with when they're having problems with applications. So if you can really just at least nail down how you troubleshoot ISP and Wi-Fi network issue, you already achieve a big goal. The remaining 50% tend to be more problem perhaps with the PC resources, an application issue, VPN, or things like gateway, for instance. So for sake of time, we thought, okay, let's focus on ISP and Wi-Fi network issues in this webinar and show how actually NetBees helps with that task. So let's get it started. So quick introduction of NetBees. If you're not familiar, NetBees provides an easy to deploy and to use remote network monitoring solution. The way it works is that you install the remote client, which is a lightweight software application that runs on a laptop or desktop. And the support is for Windows with MSIs or DMG for Apple devices. And then they can also be deployed at mass scale through, MDM tools such as Intune and CCM and so on. So once the administrator has installed the client on the laptops, then it creates the network monitoring targets, as we call them, which represent the application that are most used by the end users for their day-to-day work activities. Could be Teams, Office, any application that in general it's hosted not on the laptop itself, but in the cloud, whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud. And along with that, NetBees gives you also the opportunity to create a schedule network performance tests, such as network speed, that allows you to understand the download and upload speed for those users. So once you've done that, then NetBees will start continuously to test the network, but also provide statistics around the Wi-Fi performance the ISP performance, the internet routing, and so on. And all that information will be fed into the main NetBees dashboard server, so then it can verify if there are any problems going on one or more laptops or application, and then alert the operator about potential issues or ongoing outages. So it's a very like a simple solution, easy, as I want to show you in this webinar. So as I said, everything started with basically network tests. And we found that, two key metrics that are very important to understand the user experience are latency and packet loss. And something like a 5-second ping interval can provide a lot of context into how is the user experience, right, to the SaaS or voice and video application. So here I'm showing a very simple screenshot of this ping test running for an agent to an application. We have the average latency and packet loss for the last hour. And you can see that clearly, right, we have data points where overall there is a stable connection, but we have some packet loss, as you can see here, at least in this last 15 minutes, some spikes, right? And sometimes might not be easy to understand, okay, what is the impact to the end user? Well, NetBees provide a way to also estimate what is the end user experience, say if you're using a voice or video application like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So you can see that in this case, I plotted the jitter and MOS estimate on top of that network performance data. And now I can clearly identify that in this time window of 15 minutes, the user suffered at least 5 events that drop the voice and video call quality. So very, very important to be aware of that, because if that's what is going on for this user, I definitely want to get to the root of it and identify the root cause of these problems. So let's talk about ISP. 27%, as I said, of tickets are generally caused by some sort of ISP issues. So your task with managing a set number of employees, and you use NetBees, you install, and now you got data points from all these remote users into your dashboard, and you're presented something like that. Assuming that you didn't receive alerts, or maybe you're just doing a performance analysis of your population to understand, of course, who are having very low download and upload speed. You want to be also proactive in your administration and management. So one thing that you could do, for example, is identify the users that have very download and upload speed as plotted in this chart. And you could start, for example, reaching out to the user that have a very low upload and download speed and say, hey, perhaps it's either you're not getting the service that you subscribe to, or perhaps actually you need to change provider or upgrade your package to a better SLA in terms of download and upload speed. So that's something that can be done easily and proactively. So you ensure that this population is having the right network infrastructure. But of course, one data point and running ad hoc one-time test, of course, is not enough. It's also important to have historical data, and that's one thing that you can gather from NetBees. Why historical data is important? Well, I hope that these two charts kind of give you the explanation. As you can see on the left-hand side, we have a pretty stable, we don't have much variance in the results in terms of download and upload speed. Yes, maybe the download is still between 30 and 55 megabit. And actually the upload is more stable around the 45 megabits, but still, this is a pretty good outcome for a user that has a very stability in its download and upload speed. And if you compare maybe to this other user that might have peak of download upload speed even that cross or go close to 100 megabit per second, yet there is a lot of variance. So this is definitely a problem, right? You don't want to have to deal with one measurement is 100 megabit per second and then you drop at 3 megabit per second. That will cause definitely problem to your voice video calls and other applications. So you want to perhaps consider changing provider or maybe subscribing to a better package that this provider offers. So the takeaways is that use historical data. Historical data is very important because having just one data point for your analysis will not be sufficient. So ad hoc or one-time testing is not enough. Make sure you have historical data. I'm not gonna say that enough. There are other things to consider when you do internet ISP speed test to understand download and upload speed. Sometimes it could be that it's actually the internet service provider not delivering, but in some situation could also be that perhaps you have performance issues on your way to whatever speed test server you're using, right? So in NetBees, provides path analysis, which is, if you're familiar with traceroute, is very similar. It gives you better data than traceroute because it gives you visibility into multiple routes. And in this example, you can see that for this user, we see this specific spike in latency. And generally, increasing latency, jitter, or packet loss is, it can affect your download and upload speed. So it's definitely something that you want to keep an eye on. So you see this situation for a user. NetBees will provide your hop-by-hop visibility and will also highlight the hops in your path that have a very high round-trip time or response time, because that is correlated with packet loss and is correlated generally with some sort of congestion that is ongoing in a network. So in this specific case, being a private IP address, because it's a 192.168, it gives a good information to the troubleshooter that, hey, you will need to perhaps, check what's going on that internal gateway. You perhaps have to replace it or maybe reboot it, but something is going on your internal network. So the long story short is that although this may be something advanced that the end user doesn't do, actually the end user doesn't have to do anything in NetBees, but it's still very important information for the IT admin to process when troubleshooting work from home experience issues. All right, let's move to Wi-Fi network. As I show you, Wi-Fi is the second most common problem for work from home experience issues. And we want to share some best practices with you about Wi-Fi, how to deal with Wi-Fi. And the first of this kind of advice we give you is that don't use the Wi-Fi network unless you have to. That's a very important rule. We understand that not everyone has access perhaps to even an Ethernet interface on their laptop, because many vendors are now discontinuing this option. But for sure, if your job description is, for example, taking a lot of voice and video call and dealing with customer, you definitely want to consider connecting with an Ethernet cable to your gateway, because definitely Wi-Fi is one of the most common problem, as we're showing. But of course, hybrid workers, we understand that still the majority of users, they don't like to have cables, and maybe they don't even have the ability, especially hybrid workers. They might go to the office, they might go home, right? So it might be more challenging. So we definitely still have to troubleshoot Wi-Fi issue for many instances. So what is another best practice and what NetBees does to help with that? We log, one of the many metrics that we provide is the signal strength, noise, and also the connection and reconnection events that is happening on the wireless side. So as you can see here, it's a very simple screenshot of, in this case, there is a signal strength that was dropped, and actually then the user reconnected to an access point, right? So these are definitely events that will disrupt the user experience. And each event will require a different specific way of approach. For instance, if there is a drop in signal strength, definitely there might be that the user is too far away from the access point. So you want to make sure that there is good line of sight, that there are not too many elements in the room or between the user and the access point that create problem with the signal strength. If you see the noise increasing, that could be like interference with other either networks or perhaps even devices that are not necessarily WLAN devices. So very important to have that data, real-time historical, to really quickly identify and figure out what could be the resolution. So when talking about interferences, one thing that also NetBees provide is the SSID scanning. SSID scanning is important because it allows you to see if you're using, if your access point is using a channel that is very, very busy, and you have a lot of neighbors where you live that are using maybe the same channel. So NetBees provide a remote SSID scanning along the main function that allows you to verify if you have overlap with other networks. And if that's the case, you can perhaps switch, change channel, band, right, where possible, so you can use a channel that is not too busy. So very important to do this type of analysis, especially for those users that live in a very kind of urban areas or densely populated areas. All right, so before actually going to the next slide, I actually want to invite Panico from NetBees. We're gonna show you a real case of troubleshooting Wi-Fi problems. Panico, can you hear me?
Hi, Stefano. How's it going?
Pretty good, thank you. Great, so
Oh,
I'm
that
gonna
my
show
agent needs
actually, exactly, I'll share the dashboard with the webinar attendees, and you can see this is Panico agent live streaming data. There you go. And you can see that I'm going to go on the wireless metrics, and let me see how is the video. Panico, can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm so
Yeah, you're kind of cutting
yeah,
out.
I
I can see
can.
you're cutting out. And in fact, like,
Um,
as you can see live, I want to show the attendees. I can see that definitely
working
your signal
around
strength
the
is
office right
dropping.
now, but
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. So this is a typical problem where Panico has a signal strength dropping like pretty bad. You can also see he runs a Mac. So Mac also gives you the MCS value and the noise. And this is a very good way to see that, right, how to use this data to troubleshoot remote user issue with Wi-Fi. So I would say that this lack of signal strength is also impacting the test that Panicos is running. You can see there is an increase in latency, increase in packet loss, and a drop in MOS. And in fact, NetBees has also raised an alert. So thank you, Panico. And yeah, just wanna to show you live a real example of how this data can really be used to be more proactive, but also more efficient into troubleshooting and user experience issues. I can do this on my desk without having to do, a shared desktop screen with the remote user or perhaps on a call. It's a very disruptive process for everyone. And our philosophy is like give something that IT personnel can use without having to waste too much time, right? Zero touch, as we say. All right, so before I close the webinar, as we cover the main topics, which is ISP and Wi-Fi performance issues, there is one small topic that I want to talk about application issues, which accounts for still 14% of the tickets that IT has to deal with. And I want to show you a very simple way that NetBees handle application monitoring. And it's based on the power of distributed network monitoring. We call distributed network monitoring when monitoring is happening from multiple points. And in the case of NetBees is from multiple agents, because those agents are in the end small monitoring servers, right? So you can see in this case that I can detect also application performance issues, like in this case is an HTTP test that has increased page loading time. And as a result, a bunch of agents have trigger alerts that you can see also highlighted here. So with that, I have a pretty good confidence because of the many agents that I've deployed around the, a specific area. That is an application issue because it's impacting all the agents, right? Or most of them. So it's just a very simple use case, but it's still very powerful to know, the typical conundrum. Is it the network? Is it the application? Well, with NetBees, we have a very simple way to also answer that question in a few seconds also. All righty. So I want to conclude today's webinar with a couple of things, closing remarks. As I said, first of all, internet speed and Wi-Fi are the most common problems for remote work from home users. Second, historical data is very, very critical to troubleshoot end user experience issues. You know, running tools, running commands or test ad hoc helps, but you don't know what happened before. You don't have, you know, a history into the performance of the user. So you're very much limited in your troubleshooting, right? So with historical data, you can also do performance reporting, and then you can analyze, like I showed you before, your user population and identify the chronic users that have always problems. And lastly, continuous testing, which is the active network monitoring test that NetBeans does, is very important to be proactive and efficient. As you can see, I can quickly detect problems, and by having all that data and historical data, I can quickly figure out what the problem is. I don't have to call users, deal with them. I can just troubleshoot everything on my desk and then move on, right? So if you like this, and if this is the first time you learn about NetBeans, you never dealt with it, we offer a 14-day free trial. You can start the dashboard right now. Just go to netbeans.net/start, and we'll be, you know, you will be guided to a subscription form to start your free dashboard, no credit card required. Or of course, feel free to also schedule a product tour. But with that, I'm gonna pass it back to you, Jess.
Thank you.